Regardless of the problem facing your team, as manager, you're expected to have the answer, right? After all, you are the manager. Well, not necessarily. Unfortunately, this is a trap many managers, and not just new ones, often fall into. In this episode, we'll explore why always having the answer can often backfire and how to avoid it yourself. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you.
Managers often feel they need to come to a new position or to their current position with the answer to key problems. They then make a decision and implement it. This response can come through arrogance or insecurity, or because they feel they must be decisive and establish their control. And it is an excellent recipe to get yourself into trouble fast.
It's important to keep in mind that by the time a problem reaches the manager, they are seldom the first to encounter it. Simple problems usually get solved by staff and don't reach the manager unless the solution is wrong. In other words, a manager is seldom the first one to have to deal with a problem. This is important because it means others have thought about and thus have important information you need to consider when coming up with an answer. What have they tried or rejected as answers? Why? Are there aspects of the problem you're not aware of? What are they? Who else has addressed it? And so on. To not fully consult with any others who may have already considered the issue is to potentially miss critical information and also possibly offend members of your staff. It's also possible to lose valuable help in solving the problem.
It's interesting what you were saying about simple problems usually get solved by staff and don't reach the manager. That's one of the things that managers can also fall into, where they start getting involved in those problems. And then what happens is they're regarded as having their fingers and their hands into things that they shouldn't be in. Rick, you were talking about simple problem usually gets solved by the staff and doesn't reach the manager. Often that can be worked out with people on the staff. The thing that may not be able to be worked out is if a couple of people are having issues with each other, and what the manager has to do is be very careful of. I could give example after example of situations that I've had where when two people have an issue, it seems pretty clear in the beginning that that A or B or C should be done. And then what happens is that once I coach someone and they go to the two people that are having an issue and they begin to find out about it, it's much more complex than what they initially thought. And there, the manager often has to think about it, see if they can come back with any ideas, ask each of the people what they can do to come up with an idea. But that significantly adds time, and the manager may have to gather facts from other people as well as the two people who are in question. They may have to look and see the work product that the people are putting out and try and figure it out. But this can be a larger problem, and it may be changing workload of people in order to solve the problem.
Yeah, and I've had experiences too, Fred, where the two people just don't get along, and it's almost if one says the sky is blue, the other one pushes back, and there's an argument, and it complicates the manager's job because you've sort of got to be the arbiter of this interpersonal problem that's really not directly related to the work at all.
Yeah, and then if the roles that they're playing are closely associated or overlap to some degree, then that makes the problem even more complex. And ultimately, if the manager gives every effort to try and work through it with the two people, and it's not working, then the roles of one or the other may have to change so that they're not overlapping with each other.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think we've all been down that road before.
Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes the people problems are the worst to try to deal with.
no question. No question.
But the trick is balance. You don't want to fall victim to analysis paralysis, where you become overwhelmed by too much information and fail to make any decision. Often this happens when different people have different ideas about the answer. And here, if possible, the wise manager will try to bring the parties together to mutually come up with the best answer. And this should not be seen by the manager as weakness, but good problem solving. And if consensus can't be reached, then the manager will have to make a final decision, but at least it will be made with a fuller understanding of all the options and with all involved feeling they've been heard. And more often than not, this makes implementing the solution a great deal more effective and efficient.
It does. And all too often, managers feel that this asking for help or more information or discussing possible solutions with others is a sign of weakness or poor management skills. It's just the opposite, just as Rick was saying. Showing respect for the insights, knowledge, and experience of your staff, clients, and coworkers is a sign of someone who's secure in their position and wanting to find the best solution. It also shows respect for all those you consult. Arriving at the answer is only the first part of the manager's task. The second is, of course, implementing the answer. Here again, it is important to involve all who have a stake in the solution to the extent possible, especially if there are some who will be affected by the answer who did not agree with it. It is important that they understand your reasoning behind it and that they are on board with its execution. Making sure that they feel they were heard and that their input was respected, if not ultimately followed, will go a long way in this regard.
Yeah, and it's also important, Fred, for the manager to remember that everyone involved in this issue, especially if it's a complicated one, is likely to have a different perspective on the issue. Understanding these different viewpoints is also important in arriving at and explaining the final answer. On the other hand, though, if your staff think you're dealing superficially with a deep problem, they'll not only be difficult to rally, but they may also feel that you're making a quick decision just to look good. And they may not share information and that'll make it a lot harder to get at the root of the problem. And they may even privately root for the solution to fail.
You don't want that to happen. Suppose you take the right path to solving the problem. You ask your staff, your boss, key stakeholders for input, and you gather perspective on how the problem came about and research what can be done. Then you present your finding to your staff and jointly develop a solution and a way forward. Does this mean you are home free? Absolutely not.
No. The solution to a complex problem can sometimes mean changing the culture, and boy, that's not easy. Even relatively minor changes can cause issues. Changing existing power balances and changing norms and habits take time, sometimes a lot of time. And it's always takes more time than you had budgeted. And most of us don't like change, and old ways will be clung to.
That they will. And just as you said, changing the culture is not easy, and you have to, it's going to take typically much longer than you think. And the same with the power balances, because that normally comes with the change of the culture. And so you've got to have the patience to be there and work on those issues.
Yeah, and it's not only your staff that have to adjust. I mean, all your clients, your vendors, your other stakeholders, they have to get used to the idea that there may be a change going on and that they're going to have to behave differently. It's very complicated.
It is. And within your staff, there are going to be different attitudes and changes. Often you'll find that there's a group that will accept the changes with relatively little selling the changes on your part, and they'll help to implement a new direction. Then there may be a group that will have somewhat negative opinions and many questions about the new direction. And here, again, we've been talking about patience. You will need to determine where their concerns are coming from and take the time to help them to understand why the changes are being made and answering all of their questions. And this will often take much more time than one meeting. Then there may be one person or a small group that will have serious questions and not engage in the new direction. In this situation, you will need to do everything you can to help them understand the changes that are necessary and give them a chance to get on board. If over time they continue to resist, you may have to have a difficult conversation with them to willingly comply or seek another position inside or outside the company.
Yeah, that's hard, but very common. So in this episode, we discussed the fact that problems that reach the manager's desk are seldom as simple as they might appear, and that the manager who believes that they must always have the answer is often looking for trouble. It is the wise manager who also takes the time to fully understand a problem and be willing to seek other perspectives before rushing in with an answer. We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.